Well, it's been about a year since I posted a video. There are a couple reasons for this, but the main reason is that I ran out of money. I had some downtime, so I decided to make a video illustrating how a middle-class person goes about paying for a newly constructed house without using a bank loan. When I bought this land in 2019, I was going to borrow money from a bank and pay a builder to build the house. I expected to be living in the house within a year or two. But then 2020 happened. My ability to pay back a loan was suddenly in doubt, and building materials doubled or tripled in price. With all of this stuff going on, I had to make 3 major changes to my plans. First change, I was going to have to build a smaller house. My extra bedroom and office and downstairs bathroom are going to have to wait. Second change, no builder. Any labor I can do myself will save a lot of money. Third change, no bank loan. 2020 proved to me that unpredictable things can happen, and I didn't want to put myself into a position where the bank could take my house and land. So we have a new plan. But how do we do it? How does a middle-class person save up enough money to pay for a house out of pocket? I ate a lot of ranch-style beans. I would eat oatmeal for breakfast, ramen noodles for lunch, and a can of ranch-style beans for dinner. Even with inflation, it's still possible to feed yourself for under $3 a day. In 1 year, this saved me between $6,000 and $7,000. Additionally, I've reached a point in my life where I no longer need to express my personality through consumable products. I didn't buy a new phone or car or clothes or much of anything I didn't absolutely need. After 1 year, I had saved between $15,000 and $16,000. After 3 years, I had saved about $48,000. That's not enough to build a house, but it is enough to build a foundation and buy the lumber you need for the framing. I was doing the work myself, so the labor was free. But as it turns out, I needed help framing the roof, and to protect my new framing, I needed a roofer and shingles, heavy equipment to hoist the roofers up, and windows. To make sure all the guys were paid, I signed up for a few credit cards with long introductory periods of 0%. So now I had 1 year to rid myself of these 0% cards before they turned into 27% usury monsters. My regular income wasn't going to be enough. But fortunately, I had a backup plan. Over the last few years, I'd been slowly renovating the 2-bedroom house that I'd been living in. I'd hoped I could keep the house for a little longer. I'd grown to like it. But I was running out of time, so I put the house on the market. It took about a month to get an offer and another month and a half to close, but it did sell. I immediately paid off my credit card debts. And I had enough left over to start working on the house again. So let's get back to work. We are into year 3 of building this house. My goal for this year is to finish the outside of the house. But before I can do that, I need to rough in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And I want to build my circular stair. Let's do the stair first. When I'm building stuff, I prefer to grab my tools and improvise my way to victory. This sometimes works, but for a complicated circular winder stair, I'm going to need to build a computer model first. The code requirements for stairs are very specific. Our steps need to be at least 10 inches deep, at a point 12 inches from the inside face of the stair, and we can only go up a maximum of 7.75 inches per step. If we do the math, we find out that we need 16 steps to get to the second floor. I was a little worried that I didn't have enough room for 16 code-compliant steps, but the math and the model tell us that it's going to be tight, but it should fit. There might be a problem with my 8-foot-tall in-swinging entry door, but we can worry about that later. It's finally time to grab some tools and try to build this thing. I have never built a curving, cascading structure with 16 semi-trapezoid-shaped platforms that must all be the exact same size and vertical distance from each other, so as you might imagine, this took me a very long time to construct. Fortunately for the viewer, we can speed things up. We are about to find out if our math was right, and we cut and nailed these 1 million pieces of wood accurately. All that's left is to add a couple more pieces of floor, which was a mini puzzle of its own, and there we go. The curving winder stair is roughed in. I do have to figure out how to open things up over the entry door. As I feared, I had to cut my 8-foot-tall door down to a 7-foot-tall door, and I was going to have to remove some of the vertical support. So now I need to install a laminated stringer for the top 4 steps. I do that by taking 1/8 inch plywood, cutting it into 16-inch strips, then forcing it into a curved shape, which can be a little tricky when you're standing at the top of a ladder, and screw it into place. You then cut it flush with the steps, glue on the next piece, and repeat all the steps. You do this 12 times. And you end up with an 1.5 inch thick, floating and curving stringer. I'm going to build the handrail like a wall. I'm doing this for 2 reasons. It makes the stair stronger, and I like the solid look. It's important that this floating half wall doesn't move, so I'm attaching it with these 5-inch long structural screws. I used 3 of these screws in each post. This thing is not going anywhere. Now we need a top plate for our descending, curving stair. To cut the tops so they would match the angle of the stair, I attached a thin strip of wood all the way down. I used a reciprocating saw to cut the angles. I tried scoring a 2x4 and then bending it into a curved shape. The problem with this method is that it left me with a very fragile piece of wood. I couldn't attach anything to the top or the sides without breaking a piece off. So I scrapped that idea and cut a bunch of 1-foot long pieces of wood and used a circular saw to shape those into a curve. This gave me a smoother curve and a more stable frame, which I can attach finished material to later. That's as far as we can go with this stair until we can close up the framing. So now we do the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Where I live, if you're building a new house inside city limits, it is against the law to do your own mechanical, electrical, or plumbing work. I'd actually called in to see if I could run some wire and staple it to the studs, maybe save a little bit on the electrician's bill. The code official told me that if he finds out that I did any electrical work, he's going to have everything torn out and there'll be a stop put on the construction. So I stayed out of the way, while these licensed professionals install the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. I had hoped the house being here would stop the random visits from unknown parties, but after a heavy rain, I found more footprints. My theory is that neighborhood kids are using the crawlspace to play hide and seek. Also found a rabbit head, just the head. I'm assuming that an animal dragged it under there and had its meal. So I set up another trail camera, aimed it at the crawlspace opening, and left it there over the winter. When I pulled the memory card, this is what I found. Like last winter, there were lots of empty video clips. Just to remind you, it's a motion-activated camera. Something has to trigger it to turn it on. I did discover that there are a lot of animals running around in my crawl space. Here's a squirrel. There's a skunk. A clumsy raccoon. I don't know what that is. This appears to be a fox. Here's another fox. 2 foxes. And of course, plenty of cats. Here's a white cat. This looks like a Siamese cat. And that's a chubby tabby. There were 117 videos on the memory card. I watched them all from start to finish, but I didn't see any neighborhood kids. Unless this is one of them? You tell me, does that look like a child? Whatever that was, I don't want it in my crawl space. So I cleared out all the crumpled up sheets of plastic and debris. And boarded up the entry point. In the next video, I install the stone base on the outside of the house.